This week, in 2013, Nick Foles tied an NFL record for most touchdown passes in a single game, tossing 7 against the Oakland Raiders. Although 6 other quarterbacks had thrown 7 touchdowns in a game in NFL history, Foles was the first to ever do so with a perfect passer rating. This magical moment came in the middle of what was one of the best seasons for a QB in NFL history. His 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions were the best touchdown to interception ratio at the time.
Red zone. Foles has it. Throws end zone. Touchdown, Riley Cooper. That's 7 for Nick Foles. 7 touchdown passes today.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk Philadelphia here on SALLE TV. I'm your host, Josh Abrams. Today we're going to be talking about some headlines. We're going to talk about Real Muto winning the Gold Glove. Embiid returns from his suspension. We're going to talk about some Flyers. After that, we're going to get into some Eagles. So we have a jam-packed Sports Talk Philly for you guys today. I have a great panel with me on hand to talk some Philly sports. Nick Kerr, Jamie Smith, and making her Sports Talk debut for the season is Siobhan Nolan. Let's get right into headlines. The first one we're going to talk about is JT Realmuto winning the Gold Glove Award. Now, I can't remember the last Phillies catcher to win the Gold Glove Award, but it is pretty clear that JT Realmuto is one of the shining stars from what was a very inconsistent Phillies team. Siobhan, you have a few words to say for Realmuto. What's your overall reaction to him winning it?
I mean, I think that this is totally deserved. I think after he was kind of snubbed for the All-Star game, he was given that alternate spot. I think that this Gold Glove win totally deserved. He is the best catcher in baseball by far, so this is definitely something that he had coming for him. Yeah,
and it was certainly well-deserved considering the stats that he put up, the numbers that he performed this year. It was obviously well-deserved, and we're gonna hope for more of that as we look to extend him in the offseason. But that's going to do it for the headlines. We're going to save all that talk for Phillies later on. Let's get right into the Flyers. And we said coming into this season that we had sort of higher hopes than usual for the Flyers because they have Carter Hart as their goaltender and a new veteran head coach in Alain Vigneault. Right now they currently stand at 7-5-2. They have gone on some pretty bad stretches, but they also come home and win these last couple of games. You see the graphic there. They haven't lost a game in regulation since the last episode, but there's clearly some ups and downs here. I guess, what are your guys' general reactions to how the team has been playing in, let's say, the last week or so?
I just think it's wild how the Flyers could go from winning 2 straight games at home and playing great defensive and offensive games and then go and lose a game to the Penguins, which we all know how I feel about the Penguins. But not only was it a loss, it was a 7-1 loss. So it's just the inconsistency with our team is just something we've always struggled with, and I've talked about this many times, and it's just we could play great games and then we could just fall off and play absolutely terrible games. So I just think that that's something we need to work on is like our defensive aspects definitely need to step up.
And I think especially when you have players like, obviously Konechny's been the big star, Carter Hart's amazing, Joel Farabee's really coming up this year. So when you have those stars, but you don't have the veterans and the other firepower to kind of embrace them a little more and help Konechny and Farabee and Hart to really shine in their real potential, I think that just hurts the team more than anything to have those stars, but not have people around them that can really help the team win their full potential.
Yeah, I see, in my mind, they kind of remind me of last year's team. They're all over the place. They'll go on their hot streaks, and they'll go on their big losing streaks. But what they need is what some other teams in the NHL have is they need to come together as one, and so that way they can go on those longer winning streaks and hopefully go well into the postseason there.
Yeah, and I mean, Jamie, kind of referring back to what you said about going on these these stretches where they look absolutely horrible, and that's where we kind of refer back to the Canada road trip in the beginning of the year. They come home and they obviously seem to have figured some things out at home, and it's still early in the season. There's still a lot of hockey left to be played, but is there anything you guys are looking at with this team that sticks out like a sore thumb in terms of needing to improve?
Oh, for sure. I could say we're lacking a lot of grit. I think that one thing that the Flyers are known for is our roughness, our toughness, like checking people up against the boards, dropping the gloves once in a while. I haven't seen a fight in God knows how long.
Probably
and
since
I was talking about that at the game, how there was no fight, it just lagged.
Yeah,
there wasn't a lot of passion in it. They were just kind of very languid on the ice.
Yeah, when you think of Flyers hockey, you think of roughness, you think of fights, you think of missing teeth and black eyes. We have none of that this year.
Right.
At all.
It's almost like they're coming away from these games without a scratch on them.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
they're trying to overcomplicate their plays and not trying to. Sometimes you just need to hit someone or shoot it. I feel like their passing is
Yeah.
becoming way more overcomplicated, and it's not. And it's a lot of just dumping and chasing, and it's not really receiving to work out for them.
That's kind of what the Flyers have been, at least dating back to the Hackstall days, maybe even before that. I mean, the Flyers love to play against the boards. They love to, like you said, dump it in deep into enemy territory without icing it, and then it's almost like they throw it in there, and then they just hope that the other team makes a mistake trying to get it out of their own ice. But one of the really concerning things about this Flyers team, and really something that we may have to move on from, is number 53, Shane Gostisbehere. I mean, 4 years ago, I think I was a senior in high school when we were all talking about him as being the next good defenseman for the Flyers, and it's year after year after year he has just continued to fall off. Do you guys have any kind of guesses as to how and why this is happening? Because it looked so promising a couple years ago.
I think that's a big problem with any player. If you hype them up so much, a lot of times the pressure gets to them and they just can't live up to that hype, and then it decreases the motivation and the self-esteem, and they just can't possibly live up to what people are expecting of them. Because especially in Philly, when we get a promising player, those expectations are through the roof, and a lot of times it's not humanly possible to meet that. So I think that's probably one of the problems with him.
Yeah, and I think he had a great rookie year. He was putting up some good numbers, but just the fact that we got rid of one of our best defensemen, Radko Gudas, I think that was a huge mistake getting rid of him, but we're going to keep Ghost. I just think that wasn't a good choice for the Flyers.
Yeah, just going off what both of them said, when you overhype somebody, they're going to go under their expectation radar completely, and they just won't be the same as they were when they were when they were coming into the team.
Which is a shame. I mean, Jamie, you said it's a shame that they didn't keep Radko Gudas. I think they were really just more focused on keeping Gostisbehere, mainly because they drafted him and they wanted to try and develop him. I think that sort of becomes the problem in sports these days, especially with Philly sports for whatever reason, where we draft guys and then we try and hold on to them to show that we have faith in them. I guess another positive point, or switching over to the positive side for the Flyers, something that they've really improved on that has been a killer for them the past couple of years is how well they're defending on the penalty. I mean, they may not be converting on the power play, which is fine. The offense is going to gel at some point, but I'd like to think that this defense, it may not be consistent a lot, but especially when we're short a man, it's almost as if we feel good, we feel better about ourselves when we're shorthanded. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we did have that one, I think it was JVR, scored that shorthanded goal on that breakaway. I thought that was fantastic. And I think that along with other great penalty kills that we've done, I think that's something we need for our team right now.
Yeah, and being good on a man down situation, that motivates your team so much that, hey, if we can do this with one less guy out on the ice, then we can win so many more games with an even strength.
Yeah, and I guess another point I want to bring up is that we kind of talked about it earlier, where guys like Konechny and and Oscar Lindblom. Like the younger guys are actually starting to step up more to the plate compared to the seasoned veterans that we have. You see the graphic there with guys such as Farabee, who has really come out of nowhere. I guess looking further down the road, do we see enough potential and talent and skill in this Flyers team to be able to at least get into the playoffs? Because I know the last couple of years it's always been, sneak in and get the 8th seed. Maybe you can win a few games here and there in the playoffs, but like, I think we're kind of sick and tired of that. Do we think we have enough firepower this year to at least exceed those kind of expectations?
I don't know about this year, but I think in terms of draft prospects and who we have coming up, we have Farabee, we have Morgan Frost playing for the Phantoms. This year we drafted Cam York, who's playing for the University of Michigan right now. Those are all talents that we can build on and we can foster and turn into superstars that can follow Van Riemsdyk and Couturier and Giroux. So I think focusing on that next generation is really going to help us in the years to come.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I mean, like, Farabee's just 19 years old. He has such a huge career ahead of him, and I think that him putting up the numbers that he is already, I mean, he has 2 goals and technically a 3rd goal, but it wasn't counted because it was offsides. But
It counted.
it counted in our hearts. Let's be real.
Yeah,
but I think that putting up numbers like that, like, this kid really came out of nowhere, and I didn't know who he was, and I think he's really just making a name for himself now.
Yeah, I think that's really something we're going to be looking more forward to. We're going to get what we're going to get out of our veterans, but it's really the young guys that are going to really make the difference for us this year. So that's going to do it for Flyers Talk. When we come back, we're going to come back and talk some Eagles. Stay tuned.
Kylie lost to an egg.
An egg?
An egg.
How does a general lose to an egg?
The internet's to an egg.
You know, there is a show for that. It's called Backstage Pass.
See the new library plan?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, they're doing stuff in the library. Oh.
In the library?
Yeah.
New library.
You know, there is a show for that called LTV News, where the action never stops.
I wonder how the basketball team is.
You know, there is a show for that called SportsTalk.
So are you a Carson Wentz or Nick Foles guy?
More of a Nate Sudfeld team.
Oh, really? Interesting. Wonder where we can hear about Philly sports.
You know, there's a show for that called SportsTalk Philadelphia.
You like Family Feud?
Yeah.
You like all shows like that?
Yeah.
I wonder if LaSalle has a show like that. That'd be kind of cool.
There is a show for that called Q&A.
I really wish that we could just display our talents.
Yeah, me too.
There's a show for that called Explorers Got Talent.
All this and more on LaSalle TV.
The son of fire and beauty, destruction and life. Something so magnificent you can't even look at it. My son of fire and passion, life until death. Something so magnificent you can't look away. Maybe because we don't look at the sun, we are afraid that we might not be able to let go of the beauty that just might end up destroying us.
According to the Mayo Clinic, exercising has stress-busting benefits by bumping up your endorphins and improving your mood.
Welcome back to Sports Talk Philly. We're getting right into Eagles talk. Jamie and Siobhan are stepping off, and Jim Wister joins me and Nick here. We're going to get right into Eagles talk, and the Eagles, they come away victorious this weekend with a 22-14 victory at home over the Chicago Bears. It was an absolute defensive slugfest. The Birds got up early in the game. They got a 12-0 lead by halftime. And then Chicago made it interesting in the second half with 2 rushing scores by David Montgomery. And ultimately it came down to a botched kick return by the Chicago Bears to essentially seal the deal for the Eagles. And guys, I just want to get your general reactions from this because it's been an up and down season for the Eagles, as we know. But coming away victorious, I guess, a win is a win, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this win was very important for them. Losing to the Bears would have been like a complete disaster because that team has been a complete disaster this season. Mitch Trubisky is one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the whole league. You just can't lose to that guy.
Right.
The Bears' offense is completely just anemic when he's out there. They have no option but to do short, dumb passes to Tariq Cohen and, as you said, run the ball with David Montgomery a bunch. So, like, this was a game that the Eagles should have won, but it could have also been a trap game, and I'm glad that they did pull this out.
Yeah, this past one was a big confidence booster heading into that bye week, especially with who they have in the New England Patriots right after the bye week. That is a big game for them. So going into that is a big momentum build of building. Going off with what Jim said, yeah, the Bears stink. If the Eagles would have lost, I would have been embarrassed for the whole city of Philadelphia, to be honest.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been pretty, but luckily it worked out the way that it did. And something that's really resonating as an Eagles fan, because we were complaining about this in the beginning of the year when Jordan Howard was only getting 10, 13 carries a game. Like, yeah, I guess that's a lot, but for Jordan Howard, that's not enough. And in the last 2 games, he has been the absolute workhorse running back. And I know that's not really the way you do things in the NFL anymore, but it's clearly working for us, and it's going to have to work for us because even though we did essentially add Jordan Matthews to our receiving core, we still need to establish the running game because even with adding Matthews, the passing game still isn't enough.
Oh, yeah. I've been saying this from the beginning of the season that Jordan Howard should be easily getting 20, 25 touches a game at least because he is that workhorse running back. When he was over in Chicago, he was their workhorse. He was the one that made that offense go. You can see how much they're struggling now that they don't have a player like him in their offense. Whereas like Miles Sanders is a great young player, and one day he might be a great running back, but he's not at that level yet. They need to ease him into being a workhorse. So like getting him 10 touches, like you seen a couple weeks ago, he can break off a big run, but he's not going to do that consistently. His game is just predicated on maybe getting that big run, and the rest of his carries aren't really anything that special.
Yeah, you definitely need Jordan Howard to at least have, I might even say maybe even 30 touches a game, just so you have that momentum. You don't have to rely on the receiving core a lot because really they're not really good in my mind.
Right. No.
Other than that,
you don't need to sugarcoat it. Our receiving core is putrid. But even if it doesn't need to be 30 runs a game. Like Howard can get involved in the passing game if Doug Peterson wants to get him involved. It's just a matter of establishing that ground game. And I guess another resurging player from this week. Old Reliable's back, Zach Ertz. He finally, he puts up Zach Ertz stats that we've been waiting for him to perform all year, and I'd like to think that played a big role in us winning, even though we only put up 22 points. But this, like you said, Nick, this being a confidence booster for the Eagles, this game itself for Zach Ertz individually has to be huge for him.
Yeah, it will. Since he had a big game, he had over, what was it, 10?
I think it was 9. It was 9 receptions.
Yeah, 9 or 10.
Yeah.
And that's a typical game for him. So going into that game next week, he will have more confidence, and Wentz will have more confidence throwing him the ball then.
Yeah, like you said, it's a confidence builder for Zach Ertz, but it's also one for Carson Wentz because you can tell that that's his favorite target. He feels comfortable when he knows that he can go out there and look for Zach Ertz just about every play. That's always his number one option when he drops back to pass. So just having him be more involved, like the Eagles need this so bad because this allows defenses to focus more on Ertz going over the middle, and that could free up opportunities for Alshon Jeffrey to maybe catch a jump ball or Aguilar to get past someone and catch like a deep bomb touchdown. Like this was very, very important for their offense.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly good to see Ertz perform that way, and the bottom line, I think, is that we're going to need to have games like that from Ertz for the rest of the season because, we have Alshon Jeffrey, but I watched him drop at least 2 or 3 passes this weekend, and we don't know. We're not going to get much out of Nelson Aguilar. We've gotten little to nothing out of Mac Hollins and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. It's painful for me to say their names on the show, but I mean, that's why getting Jordan Matthews was such a big deal because not only does he know the offense, is he familiar with the coaching staff and most of the players and just the overall environment that Philadelphia brings him. he's gonna be our top performer, if not our second, third best performer, especially in the receiving corps.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a benefit to have him back. As you said, he's very, very comfortable with the system. He's been in Philadelphia multiple times now, but he's going to help the offense, but at the same time, there's a reason that he's bounced around the league as much as he has, and he struggles to find jobs after teams cut him. He's not a spectacular receiver, but he can get the job done, and that's honestly what the Eagles really need right now. It's just a consistent target. He's going to go out there, run his routes right, get open from time to time, and make the catches that are there for him.
Yeah, and just going off what Jim said, I also think that he is a good replacement for Deshaun Jackson, who is possibly done for the rest of the season, in my mind.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, it's a real shame. I don't really know where to begin with this Deshaun Jackson deal. Say what you will about him. He was supposed to be one of, if not the focal points of this offense. And when you have those kind of expectations, those kind of plans for him coming into the season, and then he goes down after one game, barely even into the second game, and he plays in the first series or two, or I don't even know. Did he play? I'm trying to remember if he got hurt like during warm-ups or during the game itself.
I think he gave it a go, and then he got hurt during the game.
So really, I mean, who do you point the finger at then? Do you point at the coaching staff? I mean, for me, I think first about the medical staff. We're not going to see Deshaun Jackson again this year. I mean, I know if we make the playoffs, he may come back for the wild card and the rounds beyond that if we can get that far. But it's just that's probably I'd say out of all the problems that the Eagles are having this year, that's got to be one of the worst.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge disappointment not having him. Like you said, coming into the season, there were such big plans for him to be that downfield threat who's just going to take over games, have those 80-yard touchdown passes. He just brings a whole new element to the offense that they're clearly missing without him. And one player that we haven't really mentioned yet, that instead of signing Jordy Matthews, I would have loved to see them bring up Greg Ward from the practice squad. I watched him a lot when he was in college. He was an amazing athlete. He played quarterback, obviously, and he's now a converted receiver. But I feel like he has the speed to be that kind of deep threat, Deshaun Jackson-like presence that the Eagles offense is missing.
We watched him in the preseason. If you cared enough to watch the preseason, you were able to see the great plays that Greg Ward was making. And I know, the sample size and the guys that he's playing against most likely are nowhere near what he would be facing in the NFL. But just the fact that he was showing out in the preseason, it makes you scratch your head a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, he has the talent. He should at least be given a chance to make it up to the NFL roster. I mean, we obviously don't get to see him every day in practice. Maybe he's not performing well. Maybe he's not running the best of routes. But when you have an athlete of his caliber, just sending him down the field and clearing out players like the safety going over top, that just opens up so much more for the offense.
So looking at the upcoming schedule for the Eagles, we went through the road stretch, and unfortunately we had to finish 1-2 on that road stretch. But we get 2 more opportunities consecutive in a row, with the exception of the bye week at home. But the teams that we're facing we're looking at a potential Super Bowl matchup between the Patriots and the Seahawks. Again, that's premature, it's bold, whatever. But those are the two of the best teams in football. And I know we're going to talk about this next week. But do we have enough confidence in this Eagles team that we can come out of this homestand with at least a shot at the division? I know we're going to need some help from the Cowboys, including beating them when they come to us. But in general, how do we feel going into the rest of the season?
Well, I feel like these next 2 games will really tell you what kind of team the Eagles are. These, like you said, these 2 next opponents are really good, potential Super Bowl caliber teams right here. And if people really believe in this Eagles team being able to make another run to the Super Bowl, they're going to need to beat teams like this. And obviously playing Tom Brady is going to be a challenge. Russell Wilson presents a whole new challenge. But I want to see how the defense responds to these 2 amazing quarterbacks that they're going to play. Yeah,
just going off what Jim said, if they can even have a small chance of having confidence to make it a tight game, even if they lose, I think they'll be good for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and we're gonna relax for this week, but when we come back next week, we're gonna get back on the grind, just like the Eagles, and we're gonna hope for some positive stuff there. That's gonna bring us into Fast Five, and Nick, I'm gonna start with you. The Capitals are atop the NHL standings in the East. Do you see them finishing and staying in first place?
Absolutely. They have tons of weapons. Oshie, Ovechkin, Wilson, all of their top guys are healthy. As long as they stay healthy and Wilson doesn't get suspended, then I think they'll be fine and they'll bring back the cup.
Jim, we're going to come to you, and the second question I have for you is, so the Vikings and the Cowboys are going to play this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have confidence that the Vikings are going to be able to take care of the Cowboys? Because we really need that to happen.
It's really, really hard to have any type of confidence in Kirk Cousins. Anytime he plays any team that's above 500, I think he has like a 5-27 record or something like that. Like, he's just terrible when it comes to playing good opponents. Although the Vikings do have a very good team around him, so I'm not confident, but I'm saying there is a good chance that the Vikings do pull out a win in that game.
Nick, this weekend the Patriots lost their first game of the season, much to the dismay of Patriots fans, obviously, but John Harbaugh and the Ravens get the big win. Does that solidify the legitimacy of the Baltimore Ravens?
Yes, it does. They are here. They are here to play. Lamar Jackson is going to be the new GOAT, and they will make it deep into the postseason and beat the Patriots one more time.
Jim, we're only a couple games into the college basketball season now.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you, if you can pinpoint one team, who do you think is the favorite right now?
After watching those games the other night, I'd have to probably go with Kentucky. They have a bunch of young players like they always do, but their coaching staff is amazing at getting young players to play above their age, and they don't make as many typical freshman mistakes as you see other teams make. So I feel like as the season goes on, they're of course going to have a few embarrassing moments that don't look so good, but by the end of the season, they're going to be the top team.
Nick, the last thing I'm going to leave off with you, and even though baseball's over and the World Series happened, are the Washington Nationals going to be legit in terms of winning the title, let's say, for the next 5 years?
I'm not sure because Strasburg is about to be on a different team. He's not going back. He's not going to resign. I don't think so, no.
Yeah, it's kind of tough to think that with the World Series MVP leaving. But that's going to do it for this week's edition of Sports Talk Philly. Make sure you catch us on social media. You can find us on Twitter at SportsTalkLTV. Check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/LaSalleTV. Also find us on YouTube, where you can also check out all of the other LaSalle TV shows there. We're going to hope for a Cowboys loss this weekend because the Eagles aren't playing, unfortunately. But we hope you enjoy your weekend. Tune in next week for another edition of Sports Talk Philly. Have a great weekend.